Welcome back to Spitballin Cards. In today's video, we're talking about comps, comparable sales, and why you should not be afraid of making the highest comp and why sometimes you shouldn't pay attention to the highest comp. In this episode, you have me, Scott. We have Jeff. Welcome back, Jeff. He was doing something. You were working. What were you doing, Jeff, before the last episode?
I was just down at the studio doing the table read for the new NCIS show.
Shameless plug. Jeff's on NCIS. Look at that mustache. If I can guess what type of part he plays. We also have Chris, police officer was the answer. We have Chris and we have Phil. So that's the cast for today. Ty will be back next week if you like him. But guys, let's talk about comps. Chris, this was kind of your idea. You wanted to chat about this. Why were you thinking about comps this week?
Yeah, I've been having a conversation with someone on Instagram who was really interested in a rare card that is sitting on eBay, and his hesitation in buying this card is that it would set a new comp. Like comps are all lower, but one hasn't sold, in like 8 months. So he's like, oh, I don't know. But like Jeff and I have some experience in this, both positive and negative. Sometimes it's okay. If you really like a card and you believe in it and it's rare and you have a chance to buy one, there's sometimes setting a new comp is a good thing. Like you have to get out in front of it, especially, and you should just trust yourself. So I just want to give you guys one example. This was 2 years ago, about maybe a little over 2 years ago. Jeff and I had a shot at a 2018 Topps Black Shohei Ohtani. And I'll pull this up real quick. This came up in a not that one, this one came up in a Facebook group, and the guy was asking $8,500 for this card. The only sale of this card that really existed was a PSA 9 that had sold for like I was just say like just under 2 or like right around 2K. And we're like, well, that multiplier is too high. So and he was not budging. Like he didn't care. Like we didn't come up with this price, he wasn't going to sell the card. So we just talked about it, and the pop was, I think, 3 at the time. And we're just like, we may never get another chance to buy this. Let's go ahead. Let's just do it. And we'll set the new comp. And that's fine. And we did that. I think that was the day, Jeff, I think I spent 11 hours in the car.
Yes, you did.
And in this particular instance, it absolutely worked out. Like, I think since then, a 9 has sold for almost what we paid for this 10. So sometimes you just have to, if you trust what you believe in a card and in a player, don't be afraid to just pay over what the last comp is, especially on a card that you don't see very often. If it's like if it's a card that pops up all the time, obviously different story. Anyway, that's the conversation I'm having with someone. And I wanted to get your opinion on this for the three of you. Like, what do you guys think? Have you ever hesitated on a card because you didn't want to pay more than what someone else did?
Oh, yeah.
And regretted it?
And I want to make sure I make the distinction. We're not hesitating because we can't afford it at the price it's selling for, strictly from a comp perspective. But no, there was a Jose Ramirez Superfractor I owned for a long time that I loved that card. And I could have bought it for $1,000 and then $900, and I kept offering lower. And then it sold, and that made me really sad. And I would have paid more for it than I was even offering. But it's one of those things where I think a mental thing. It eventually got popped up again for $1,500 or best offer, and ended up just buying it outright because I wasn't scared of making that comp. And if you look at all of the all-time high sales that we see in baseball cards, people who are the smartest aren't scared to make the highest comp. Sometimes it can bite them in the butt. Like, you see the biggest losses and the biggest gains of people taking that risk. So as long as you have a thesis behind what you're doing and you feel confident, that's the biggest thing. If you're just spending money, you're going to have a bad time. But if you know what you're doing, comps should not really matter. If that makes sense. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, Scott. I think someone else's fear in not taking action can translate into your success if you take that risk. And now we're dealing with a lot of, maybe not all the time in the types of cards that we transact with and that we choose to go after, but you've got repackers that really value comps and get worried if something falls out of range. And I know Jeff and Chris, you had an example here about like a repacker or a person buying on behalf of a repacker didn't want to buy something because they were like, well, I just don't really know what that value is. So I can't pinpoint it to like a specific threshold. So like, I can't buy this card. Sorry. I can't even make you an offer. I just don't know what it's worth.
Yeah.
So you're already so you're not worried about that competition, kind of like the really conservative buyer, not just repackers, but also the really conservative buyer that really wants to feel like they're getting a good deal. But as you said, Chris, like if you feel strongly about a card and you're planning on holding it for a while, that comp doesn't matter much at all. There's a lot of stuff that could happen with that player's market, the card market, that specific type of card, that could really trump what that comp was at that one given point and be overlooked. And if it's a card that gets transacted a lot, then there could be other sales. Like, so for me, I am a Bowman Chrome multiplier guy. I don't really care about comp for that specific color. I'll derive the value off a number of different things. So I think the key here is ideally have some sort of methodology or process for coming to a value of that card outside of just that one comp. That one comp is just a data point for you to use in your valuation. Yes, it's important, especially if we're going to resell it right away, because that new prospective buyer is going to use that as his leverage if that's not working in your favor. So you have to understand that. What I've done and what I've noticed a lot when I used to set up at shows, or just in general, people that like to transact a lot on Instagram, this is like pre-repacker days in like 2022, 2023. A lot of people would prefer to transact on Instagram because they were afraid of leaving that trail. They would use that as their leverage, like try to get something on the cheap, maybe a rarer item too. And they didn't want there to be like a history of that card selling for X. So that way they could get like their 20% a little bit easier. So it gave them the comfort to operate outside of eBay to do so.
What's your takes on comps, Jeff?
Yeah, a couple things with what both guys are saying. I think it's good to reiterate what Phil was saying, that an important point is that you're willing to hold it for a long term. Now, it didn't necessarily affect Chris and I because it didn't become a public comp in this particular case with the Ohtani, because we bought it off Facebook. So it wasn't like an eBay sale where the next buyer could see it. But especially if you buy it off of eBay or Golden or one of those auction sites that goes into 130 point, the next buyer is definitely going to be looking at those comps. So if you're looking to unload it quickly, you have to be aware of that for sure. And the other thing is, especially the way that my collecting has evolved and the cards that Chris and I are buying together, we're really trying to stick to more established players. So the people that are going out on a limb and willing to set new comp records on prospects and guys like Jason Dominguez coming up, those are the ones that I think of as warning signs when I'm like trying to, if I'm looking at a young player or a prospect that I'm interested in, and whether or not I'd be willing to set a new comp to go out, to reach over my skis for that. I'm a little bit more wary than a player like Ohtani or a more established player.
Here's the card you're talking about. Look at this comp, $474,000. So you can't reference comps all the time. Comps get used as weapons, both directions, from buyers and sellers. It's like a little game of Battleship. And it's also when you're trying to reach out to somebody about a card you're interested in. It's happening on Instagram just recently. It's a card I wanted. He asked this price. I said, would you consider offers? He didn't respond. Then I said, okay, I'll just take it full price, like within an hour. Didn't respond. So if you're too, like, if you just are too, like, it's like dating. If you go out and really just like say how you feel, sometimes it's like actually a negative. Same thing with comps. They're weapons, and it's kind of a song and dance, unfortunately. But when you're a seller, you're going to reference all of the high comps. Oh, that one is an outlier sale. When you're a buyer, you're going to reference that outlier sale, or other way around. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to reference things differently, and you got to be careful. And so that's why comps, they don't matter as much as you think they do. And recently, I bought an Ohtani Bowman Chrome autograph. I paid more than any PSA 9 sale at the time it ever sold for my blue hitting. And I felt convicted about it. Like, this is going to be a good purchase. And now it looked like it was a good purchase. It could have gone bad, yes. But if you have a thesis and follow your gut, usually you turn out okay.
Yeah, another example of that for me with Ohtani is about a month ago, I picked up an Ohtani 2018 Topps Update. He's got that image with him and Ichiro, the Japan's finest card. Mm-hmm. One of his like 5 cards in the update set. So that in a black parallel, I really wanted for my set in a PSA 10. I'm pretty sure I set that comp, but I don't even really care. Like the high comp for that card. Seller wanted 3,100. And why did I think that was an okay price to pay? Well, because I knew what PSA 9s were going for. PSA 9s in the low thousands, 1,400-ish. So that times 2.2, 2.5 gets you to like that 3,100. Also, I know that Ohtani's market is up like 80% in the last year. I know what I value his other black PSA 10s from that set at the more desirable poses, the base rookies. And I'm like, well, this seems like a fair price to pay. Another example, the gold prism market is going crazy. Golds out of 10 in basketball and football. Brady and LeBron specifically, the studs basically, all of their like playing year cards are going crazy out of 10. And now you've got the first year select 2013 select Tom Brady card. It's listed in auctions somewhere. I think it might be a PSA 10. And then you've got the card ladder valuation, which is using the Tom Brady index. It's not using a gold prism index or a gold select index. It's just anchored to Tom Brady's value change over the last few years when it sold last. So it's saying that the card's worth like 25K when it's probably going to go for closer to like 75K. So yeah, like the new comp that's going to be set is going to be more than double the last comp, and the buyer should feel pretty confident about it because of other factors, not just that last sale from like 2 years ago.
I do think we're talking about rare cards here. I think we have warnings. And I want to show this warning because it sounds like we're just saying, go out there and buy stuff. And that's not quite the case. It's knowing when to buy and when not to buy. Things like this should worry you for cards that are very common. Like I know this card feels rare, but there's 7,000 PSA 10s, so it's not rare. And you can see people got really caught up in the hype, paid almost $6,000 for this card. Now it's down to $700. So when we're saying be careful of comps, it can go both ways. So don't always say because this trout sold for 5,000 one time, it's worth 5,000. You know, same concept.
Hey Scott, while you're on there, what does the Griffey look like? The Upper Deck Griffey.
Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I think what Scott just said, that's important. I think we mentioned it, but we should hit it again. Like we are generally referring to stuff that doesn't show up constantly. Like if there's a rare card that you do like, and then it might be okay to beat the comp. But yeah, if we're talking about a base card, please don't just leapfrog over the last 10 sales because you like a card and there's 20 other copies of it available at the time.
Here's the Griffey.
Yeah, but also I think the other point he was trying to emphasize there was like these cards have like pops of 4,000 and up, right? When one of these sells for a price that was 15% higher than the last, yes, technically every version of that card is worth what the last comp was, but it doesn't always work that way if all of those went for sale, right? Because you need to find the same number of buyers as the number of that's in the pop report that's willing to spend that much at that given time. So like in that case, what I'll do sometimes is I'll sell stuff a little bit less. If I don't think there's enough demand and I can like sell something at a pretty strong bin that's like 5% under the last sale, I'm just like, well, like what are the chances that there's actually another buyer that would give me that same amount of money right now versus like me knowing I can sell it for this and get out of it without worrying like now there's going to be a flood of these same cards heading to the market. Now I'm going to be competing against all of them, racing to the bottom. Is that going to happen? Like it was cool seeing like that Mike Trout US 175 go into 5,500. But if all of us own that card, how many of us are actually going to be able to get out at those prices? Maybe one of us. It's really hard. It's really hard to time that peak. And also we don't know if it's going to go higher. So we might actually hold it a little bit longer, trying for a little bit more money too.
That's what happened to me on that one, Phil. That was one of the first cards I got when I got back in. I paid $500 for it, rode it all the way up to the top. I ended up getting rid of it in a trade at a $3,200 valuation. So not back down to where it is, but yeah, certainly off those peaks. It's just tough to time.
Yeah. I sold mine for $3,300, but mine was on the way up. Versus
okay.
That's a bad feeling, but you got to be okay with those moments when you sell a card too early. If you give a good profit, feel good about it. Like that's one thing that's hard is human nature is the loss of money we could have made is bigger than the satisfaction we get with the money we did make. But don't let that logical fallacy impact you. Here's a card that could be too hot right now, but it's a different situation, right? Comps don't always mean the same thing. This card was going for $6,000 in March. The last sale was, I said the last sale was $13,000. So $14,000 is the last sale. And it was as low as $6,000. So this is one of those moments you have to step back and look at this card. Why? Why is this happening? Is this happening because of just a greater, sports card movement? and people are just buying the iconic cards coming into the hobby again? Or is there a different reason that's actually long-term and lasting? What's your guys' thoughts on this card? Is it long-term and lasting, or do you think this one is more a product of the hot sports card market?
I think it's a product of people going after the goats. I mean, that percent return is similar to that Griffey, right? It's doubled in the last year.
Agreed.
So yeah, I think the movement into quote unquote safer cards, I think that's what's driving this. So maybe there is some built-in safety or a built-in floor, but like Phil said, once that bottom falls out, and it can be a race to the bottom. So with cards that there's so many of them, and you need a huge amount of demand to keep up with this supply, it makes me a little concerned.
Yeah, comps are a false sense of security in almost every way on a card like this. Would it surprise any of us went back down to $7,000? No, I don't think it would. Would it surprise us if it went back up to $20,000? No, but at the same time, like this type of card where it could drop again. And just because it's Tom Brady's best rookie card does not mean it's safe at the price currently. So that's where we have to pay attention to past comps and see what happened. Anyways, I don't know if we're all over the place in this topic, but I think it's all relevant. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think the more I look into these commodity cards that are spiking for no good reason that I can think of that's like really clear, I start to think of like, maybe this isn't the smart money that's buying these cards. Maybe this is more of a product of new people coming back in or coming in to the market and Fanatics marketing efforts, creating new buyers of sports cards. Just because I think a lot of people were just so scared off. So it's like a couple of things. First of all, the LeBron Topps Chrome rookie is even like a more interesting example than the Brady, because LeBron 2003 Topps Chrome, that got up to over $30,000 in real sales. And now it's rallied back up to 6,000 from like 2,500 or 3,000. So it's up like 50% in 3 months. But then you look at his other more rare rookie cards, they really haven't moved much. So like at least with Griffey, the Don Russ is moving almost in lockstep with the Upper Deck. Not quite up like 70% in a year like the Upper Deck is, but with LeBron, I wasn't able to find, and maybe I wasn't looking at the right cards. I was looking like his 03 finest. Maybe there's not a lot of sales on some of the stuff that I was looking at. But, and same thing with Brady, probably. It's their classic cards that are soaring at like a quicker rate. And maybe that's okay. As Jeff said, maybe this is just an iconic card of a GOAT, and then Brady's getting the same treatment. And it's just concentrated across fewer cards. And maybe some of the others just haven't. We're still early in the bull market. Maybe the others will kind of, rising tide lifts all ships. I just don't know. I think a lot of like the sharp money or smart money or established money in this hobby isn't chasing cards like this. And I don't think repackers are right now either. So it makes me wonder, like, who's really buying these? And is this sustainable?
Here's what you were talking about, Phil. Got 38,000.
Crazy. Like at least the Griffey Upper Deck. Well, I wouldn't say at least. Griffey Upper Deck is like only has a couple thousand more to go to get to its all-time high. LeBron, that's an insane chart.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
So Phil, I don't know a lot about the repack business. I know a lot of what they're going after is the modern case hits. That seems to be the target market's preferred cards. But you're saying that these aren't the kind of cards that they would put in a repack?
Not in a traditional repack. I'm sure these exist. They should. I mean, if I was starting a repack, like I would want to include cards that people would actually care to own a year later after they pull them. But I don't know. I'm also not the guy to talk to about that. So I don't. Brian Gray was talking about this. He says like a lot of the repacks out there are stuff from the last 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe last decade, but especially the last 5 years. And based on some other stuff I've heard, it is case hit oriented. And there's a lot of demand specifically with football and modern football and then modern QBs. I've heard that a lot of the people buying on behalf of repackers are targeting specifically modern football just all the time. Although, basketball and baseball obviously get some love there too.
Okay. Any other comp thoughts?
This isn't necessarily comp related, but I do think what Phil was saying there makes a lot of sense. Like there's new money coming in And if you were just entering the hobby right now and you wanted to buy a football card, you're not going to buy Eli Manning. You're going to look for the most famous Tom Brady card, and that's where you would put your money. So I think that theory does kind of makes sense to me. Like if you're someone, in your 30s or 40s, you're going to look for the Ken Griffey Jr. card, the card that like the iconic card, the one you've seen before. You're not going to look for the Ken Griffey Jr., Fleer card where he's all like greasy and sweaty. You want that upper deck card. It's in a Macklemore video. We all know what that card is. Even if you don't follow baseball, you know what that card is. So that seems like a pretty promising theory there, Phil.
Is there a theory that Kevin O'Leary's fund is buying these things up and trying to manipulate the market?
Yes.
I don't know.
There is now.
Phil just started it.
Yeah.
People are going to reference this video as their evidence for their claims. Good job, Phil. Spitballin's going to be closed down because Kevin just sued us. So defamation, unfortunately. But in order to help fight our legal fees, you can sign up for our Spitballin Patreon. It's $10 a month, and you get an extra bonus video. This week, we're talking about Nick Kurtz versus Junior Caminero and who's the better buy between the two heading into the future. I think they're both about the same age, 21, right? And so that's what we're discussing this week. We're actually about to record it right after this video. Before we wrap this one up, Chris, did you have a card that you wanted to share from our Patreon from a highlight by chance?
I always do, and I want to get your opinions on this as well. So yeah, we have a pickups thread in there, and this one comes from our very own SFO Sox fan, who is
Good guy.
pretty active member, very fun guy. He completed a little run here of Topps Heritage Willie Mays autos. These are really cool. I wanted to ask you guys, what would you rather have? Would you rather have these three Willie Mays cards pulled out of a modern set like Topps Heritage, or would you rather have a 1963, a 1964, and a 1965 Willie Mays with a in-person auto? If you had to choose.
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah.
I would probably take the in-person auto.
Yeah.
But I mean, these are awesome. I don't know what the price
value
difference would be.
The argument here that you can do versus the in-person auto is we saw that big drama with those all being fake. So these are top certified autographs. Most likely they were signed in the presence of a Topps representative, which is nice, and they're scarce. So like that's one benefit of these that I like.
Yeah, I'm not trying to shit on these cards. I think these are awesome. I really like modern cards with legend autos on them, which I think I've talked about before. Especially I see that 65 is even hand numbered.
Yeah, it's cool.
So I don't know. I would definitely be tempted to. I would feel more confident buying these and feeling that these were definitely signed by him.
Me too.
So what do you think?
Whichever one I can sell for the most money.
Some SFO Sox fan.
Yeah.
So the in-person one, I do like the firmness of his grip based on the way these autographs appear. And I don't think that would have been a reality over the last 5 years. But I know we're not really talking about that. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. It's tough.
All right. Yeah, I saw these three. I thought they were awesome. And I was kind of wondering to myself, like, which one would I rather have? But yeah, the quality of these autos far exceeds most of the in-person Maze autos that I see at shows. And
the cards look better. The cards don't look beat up. That's one problem with in-person autographs. Maybe you like that aspect because it shows that it's from the 1960s. But these cards are pretty high-quality cards, which is nice.
Yeah, they present better for sure.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you in the next video.